Alright, welcome back to how to build an F-14. Last video I was showing you guys how to get a tight fit between the stabs and the horizontal stabilizers and then the FedEx order. Actually the second set of body filler is drying right now and it didn't take that long for me to get that done. I got a little bit of spare time out here in the shop, so I figured I'd show you guys a little bit more ways of how to work with litho. If you look at this wing panel, you'll see that it kind of has a dull appearance to it. I'm gonna try to show you guys up close. You'll see that it's got some kind of scratch marks to it. What I did is I just took this green Scotch-Brite steel wool. I'm not sure what it is. It's some sort of dishwashing Brillo pad, I guess, but it's just a bunch of different hairs put together, and actually it's pretty coarse. That's what I used to get the scratch look to. It kind of helps get rid of some of the little stubborn parts that won't come off, and just kind of gives it an even surface. So what I'll do is I'll end up taking that and some Windex, and I'll clean this really good later on before I start applying mold wax and everything. You can't really see it, which is probably a good thing, but we've got the seam between the two panels here. So not a whole lot, and I can't remember if I did a video or not, but you can see the bottom of the wing is almost complete. So it's just a couple panels there to tip. You can see in the video these little panel sections here. I'm not gonna fill those in with litho. This is actually where the leading edge slat tracks are gonna go. I'm gonna have a couple of tracks and then a couple of either servos or hydraulic actuated leading edge slats. I haven't decided which way yet. Most likely I'm definitely gonna try the hydraulic route, just because the wing, especially down here towards the tip, is gonna get extremely difficult to put a servo in this area, and most likely the servo will be here. So you're probably looking at least 2 servos. I prefer a third, which is why I'm looking very highly into the hydraulic route. I haven't done much with hydraulics other than brake systems on cars and airplanes like King Airs and Cessnas and all, but I'm pretty sure that even with unequal length tubes, each cylinder should move at the exact same time, depending on how you want to put exact, as long as there's no air in the system in either the cylinders or the tubes going to it. So if it works like that, then I can get each wing to actually work fairly consistently at the same time, both retracted and extension. I'd definitely go with hydraulics, just because it'll be easier on the builder. I can actually install all that stuff to where it's just a matter of putting the leading edge slat in place, hooking up the cylinders. I'll have all the hard lines run. I'll actually have small stainless steel tubes in the wing actually already run, so it's just less things for the builder to have to do. I'm kind of aiming more towards this will be somewhat of an ARF. There's still gonna be a lot of work left, but not quite so much. But we'll see. It really depends on how many people want one, how many people actually buy one, and how busy I am laying these things up. So we'll see how it is. I know a couple of you guys want more videos on how to work with the litho plate, so I figured I'd show you how I make templates and whatnot. The first thing I do is I start out by taking the wing surface and I lay out every panel on every hatch that I want on the surface. In this case, the wing, what I did is, the first thing I did were these leading edge parts that go around between the slat tracks and around the secondary leading edge that actually sits behind the slat when it's retracted. Then once those were laid down, I went back and all these little access panels for, I guess, the leading edge slat maintenance on the full scale, they were all done. These are actually done in 2 pieces of the transparency paper, and what I did is I just laid it down, just copied from the wing marks that I'd already made onto the paper, and then I cut one long strip out. Then I did the other one since it wasn't long enough. So this is basically, you have one long strip of these, and then I went through and I individually cut the lines out of each one. So you start with one long strip and you cut out each one. That way they made up together really nicely. Here in the wing, it didn't made up quite as well, but over time, these panels, on the real airplanes, they get a little finicky and they don't quite fit just like they should. So it's good. It just makes it a little bit more realistic, which is one of the reasons why I chose to use the litho. Again, the large panels were made at one time. You can see each panel here was cut from the large panel, and the trailing edge, you'll see the line here. This is actually that's the actual trailing edge of the bottom of the wing, which is inset about 1/4 of an inch from the top side where this spoilers go on this trailing edge, which is exactly like the full scale. The full scale even had these air spill doors. Half of them were hinged, so when the flaps would go down, these doors would actually pop up, so it would let high energy air from the bottom of the high pressure air from the bottom of the wing go over the top of the flap to make the airplane land even slower and take off slower. Again, that's an option that the builder could do if they wanted to be extremely anal. I might try and do it on one of them just to see if it's possible, but that's way down the road. That'll be on a competition bird, or just let's see how scale I can make it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make these panels here at the wingtip, since these are some of the more difficult ones. You'll see that I've got that one with a number 3 on it. The bottom side is number 4. The other wingtip on this exact same area is 1 on the top, 2 on the bottom. The reason why I number them is because when you get a lot of panels that are really similar, especially for instance these bottom ones right behind the leading edge slat portions, it's hard to remember which one goes where. So if you number them and you write the numbers on the wing and then you write the number on the actual panel itself, you know exactly where it goes. I think so far there's over 1,000 panels on this airplane that I've done, and I've reused numbers. So it's been a lot of panels. From the previous video I showed you that box of stuff. I mean, that's for every one panel I've done, I've actually done it 3 times, between drawing it on the airplane, drawing it on the paper, drawing it on the litho, cutting it out of the litho. So actually about 4 times. Anyways, let's get to doing some work. For these tip panels, what I do is I just kind of eyeball where the center line of the tip's going to be. In this case, I chose where it quit curving around and the bottom curve meets. And again, that's just eyeballed. This panel here is actually it's a night vision formation light, and the front is a nav light. These will be filled in with body filler, and then the actual formation light flanges, or the frame, and then the nav light frame will be etched into it. Again, that's just so I'm not having to make this panel and then another panel inside of that panel and then have to fill inside of that anyway. So it's just easier to just go ahead and fill it with body filler, sand it nice and smooth, scribe the frame into it, take a screwdriver, heat it up with a torch, burn the screw heads in, and then shoot it with a little bit of paint to make sure it's got all the pinholes out of it, and go. Alright, so getting to work, what I use is I have a Deluxe Micro Uniball pen. I chose this because it's got a very, very fine tip, which is what you're looking for. So take your transparent film, tracing paper, whatever you happen to call it. I'm gonna find a smaller piece so I don't waste as much. Just place, preferably you want a straight edge. In this case, it's the edge of the paper. Place it right up against the panel that you're wanting to do. And zoom in for you guys a little bit more. So here we've got the panel right up against it, and I'm going to take this little area, mark it, and what I'm going to do on the back side is I'm actually going to go about 3/16 to 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch past it, so you can actually fold it over the back side. And then for this front one, since it goes over the curve, I'm just going to trace that line that I drew with a straight edge earlier. Now, since this wingtip has a curve, this way is compound curves, I believe is what it's called, or concave, whatever it is. I don't know. I've been too long since geometry class. Typically, like I said in previous videos, if you can't bend a piece of paper around the curve without it having a fold or lifting up in some area, you're not going to be able to get the litho plate to just way over the curve, so you're actually going to have to anneal and form the litho plate. Since I left the fiberglass rough, so the contact adhesive would have something to grab hold of, I'll show you how to. We'll have to actually fill in the weave where you're going to work the litho plate to anneal it. So same thing on the side, just trace across that line. This one you don't have to be quite as precise with the positioning, because the bottom side and this one I'm actually going to leave a very small gap between them and fill that with body filler. That way it blends the two panels together. That's another trick that I actually learned with one of the vertical stabilizers. Previously I was just overlapping them kind of like Monaco, or trying to get a really tight butt fit to them. But then you kind of have that, either the overlap there or a butt fit that's not quite perfect. And again, as I'm going across this, I'm just making sure the paper is flat up against the surface as I'm drawing this line. That way you don't get a panel that's quite as off in shape that it needs to be. And since our mold flange and parting line is going to be right here along the center of this tip, again, it's not quite as crucial. And then before we're done, make sure you mark that with a number 3. Take a ruler, connect these back 2 lines. And I'm just going to extend this one out to connect it. So that's the template for your top of after your tip. If you put a ruler on there, you can see it's definitely not straight, especially here towards the trailing edge of the tip. So I'll flip the wing over, and essentially you're going to do the exact same thing for this as the top side. And again, you'll notice how I always put a little mark here at the front. That just helps me while I'm getting this backside. It just tells me, like, hey, that's where it should be in order for it to be lined up. It's typically not too important when you're just doing single panels like this, but when you get a bunch of panels in line like that leading edge area I showed you earlier, it really helps to do as many of those as you can and get just small pieces of masking tape to help hold the tracing paper in place. So again, I did the 2 marks here in the trailing edge. I'm going to trace that line on the leading edge portion of that panel, and then again on the tip. Again, just making sure the paper stays flat on the surface as you work your way back. If you're really careful, you can actually get this line to be identical to what you're drawing on the piece onto the actual, in this case, the wingtip, and you won't have to worry about it too much. And number it. And for cutting this stuff out, I just went and picked up just a regular old paper cutter. Just line your line up and cut it. This thing has been a lifesaver for cutting these nice long straight lines like this. You can even do some curves, but typically it's just easier to take a pair of scissors and just cut it out with scissors. Now if I can find my scissors. There's one template. the top template for the tip, and now working on the bottom. So there we have that. And essentially, you just do the exact same thing for transferring it to the litho plate. Just line up the edge. Make 2 reference marks. Since we know these are straight, we won't have to do 2, and then just trace the curved edge with a Sharpie. But again, you want to cut away your marked line with the Sharpie. You want to cut that away as you cut the piece out. That way the piece doesn't end up being larger than what you want. You notice here on these I actually left most of the line there. Because that's the size you want. So if you cut, since you're going outside the line as you trace it, you're actually going to make the part the same size if you cut away the line. And I always use the manufactured edge of the litho plate as much as possible, or whatever the edge I happen to cut out of with the paper cutter over there. It works really well for cutting this stuff as well. The reason I use that edge is because it's, you know, it's reasonably straight. And for when you have a panel that you know is really straight, it works well, so you can make sure the panels fit together fairly tightly. Well, I got most of you guys' attention. If there are any electrical engineers or people that are pretty good with integrated circuits and programming and would like to help out on the project, I've got a nifty little control box for the wing sweep and spoilers and flap and all that stuff that I would like to have someone look into and tell me if it's possible for everything to be done, and if they were interested in helping by building a prototype of it, I would be greatly appreciated. It's one thing it's one project on top of way too many other projects for this project. So if anybody's interested, send me an email here on YouTube and let me know, and I'll send you a little a file that pretty much says what I want the box to do and its capabilities and whatnot. To me, it seems like it should be fairly simple, but I'm not an electronics guy. I can solder some stuff together and make batteries move motors, and that's about it. Alright, so there's that piece. Hopefully you guys can see this. I need to get the tripod set in an area and draw out a box here on the work table so I know exactly where to work in. And there's the other piece. So there we have the 2 templates for the well, as y'all zoomed in, so you probably didn't see any of that. But there's the 2 templates for the wingtips. I'll upload this if you guys can't see anything, or I'll watch it before I upload it. If y'all can't see anything, I'll remake it, doing the exact same thing for the other wingtip, and do some more forming tricks and all that good stuff. But anyway, here we have 2 templates for the wingtip here. When I get around to putting these on, I'll show you how I form them. I'll smooth all this stuff down before I get the video going, and then I'll give you guys a look. Well, I still got you up here. Zoom you back out all the way and get the tripod reset up. We'll look at the second attempt here of getting the stab fitting just right. Alright, there we go. You can see there's still some little pockets here and there, but what I'll do is I'll take a strip of sandpaper, and where this masking tape was I just peeled off, I'll take a nice strip of sandpaper, put it here. I'll take the horizontal stab, put it back in position, and then you'll just rock it back and forth, and that will actually that'll get that fit really nice and tight and real smooth on the inside. See if I can't get the other side. It's one of those reasons why you don't quite let it sit or cure the whole time. It just gets very difficult to come off. There we go. So I use cheap masking tape. And again, better on this one. This is the second fill job on it. So yeah, I'll do the exact same thing with this one, the strip of masking tape or a strip of sandpaper. Move it to sand it, and that'll get that nice and cleaned up. Then that'll get a coat of paint, primer, same for the leading edge, and if that's all good, these will be completely done and ready for molding. So yeah, that's about it for all today. The wife and baby are coming back tomorrow from visiting the family. In which case, I don't know how often I better get back out here this weekend, but it's supposed to be really hot up here, 97, 98 degrees this weekend. If that's the case, instead of flying, I'm going to be working, making molds and test layups and getting this thing ready to go. I'd love to see this thing in prototype stage, just waiting for final assembly and motors and everything by May of next year. We got I believe the 42nd anniversary of the F-14's first test flight coming up in December of next year. If that's the case, I would love to take this up to Calverton facility up in New York and do its test flights up there. See, it's only fitting to have this big old behemoth test flights at the same place the real one did. Hopefully we don't have the same ending as one of the first ones, but you never know. It's part of the hobby. Alright, well, you guys have a good week. Tomorrow is Friday, so have a couple cold ones and have a great weekend. We'll see y'all next time.